Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Becky DeGrosso with Counseling Wise. I want to welcome you to the webinar this morning. And what I am going to be talking about today is not getting results in marketing your private practice, part 1. Check your niche. Okay, and so before I even start with this, I want to check in with everyone to make sure that you can hear me. So if you can hear me or if you can't hear me, please enter your information in the chat box here that's on the page so that I can make sure that, okay, good, I'm getting feedback that you can hear me. That's great. All right, so I'm gonna just dive in here, and I'm gonna check one thing before I get started. All right. And aha, okay, so for some reason, this is really interesting. For some reason, my PowerPoint is not in presentation mode, which is very interesting, and I'm using a new system this week. So for some reason, it doesn't seem to be going into presentation mode. I'm not sure why. Megan, I'm wondering, can you tell me if you're seeing the chart change there, or if it's stuck on the first chart? Great. Everybody's saying they can hear me. That's good. Can you see that? Did the chart change or not? There's always a delay on this too, so I'm getting delayed feedback. Let's see. You can see all the slides on the left. Yeah, I don't know why that's happening. That's very interesting. Okay, so we seem to have a little challenge here this morning. I'm not sure what to do about that. Let me see. See if this brings you to me. And so now, oh, I see. Okay. So hopefully now we're good. Tell me if we are. Okay, Megan, is that better? Can you see the right thing now? I think you can. So I'm just gonna dive in here. Okay, sorry about that little startup glitch. We're using a new system this morning, and it works a little bit differently. So here we go. Not getting results in marketing your private practice, part 1. Check your niche. So the thing that's really interesting to me about this is that we have had. We're probably going to hit our highest registration level, I guess, for any of our webinars. And so that's pretty interesting, because what that tells me is that people are really feeling stuck. Okay, so I'm going to be doing 2 webinars. I'm going to be doing one today and one next Wednesday, and both of these webinars are for those who are attempting to market their practice online, but they're getting sluggish results or no results or whatever. It's just not working very well. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. And the problem when folks come to us and they say, hey, I'm working really hard at this and it's just not working, the problem is usually very immediately obvious to us. Okay, but it's not so obvious when it's your own site. All right, you're too close to it. It's really hard to see. And here's a confession. I mean, I do this for a living, right? I do this marketing stuff for a living, full time, and have a ton of people working for me. And it is hard for me to see the errors or the confusion or the lack of clarity in my own site. So this, don't beat yourself up if things aren't working and it may be obvious to someone else, but it's not obvious to you, because that is just very, very common. Okay, it's why you don't do therapy with yourself. All right, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk you through some client examples, some work that we've done with clients, hoping that that will help you get a better understanding. You will be able to have maybe more of an objective outsider's view of your own marketing, and you can understand whether you have a niche issue or a marketing issue. So today what we're doing is we're focusing on the niche aspect, okay? Niche, whatever you want to call it. So are you positioned correctly? That's the big question that we're going to ask today. And then next week, next Wednesday, when we have the next webinar, we're going to talk about your actual marketing. Is it implemented correctly? All right? So what is true is that checking your marketing is a much bigger job, okay? But your marketing could be totally correct, and if it's not, if your niche isn't correct, then it doesn't matter. All right, so let's talk about what are the hints that you have a niche problem. So the first hint is that you feel confused about your niche, all right? And if you feel confused, your site visitors are going to feel confused. And in fact, when someone comes to us and we look at their site and we feel confused, then it's pretty clear that that is what the problem is. The niche is not clear. Okay, the next hint is that if you're one of these people who has chosen your niche and you've done everything that quote unquote they say you should do, and it's still not working, there's probably some kind of a niche problem there. Now, and I've run into these folks. They're working really hard. They have studied everything, they have implemented, they have done all the right things, and it's not working. And usually it's because they have a niche problem. Either they're targeting too small of a group of people, or they're targeting too small of a group of people for their local market, and they need to go national. All right. So we're going to talk about those things. We'll talk about those examples here. So niche confusion, I want to give you an example of niche confusion. If you're doing business coaching and treating eating disorders on the same website, that is confusing. Okay, that's very confusing. It's the eating disorders people do not want to think that they're sharing this kind of website, this information with business folks. And business folks, they really don't want to talk about or read about eating disorders. Okay, so it's very confusing, it's discordant, and that is something that you don't want to be doing on the same website. That's just an example. There's millions of examples like that. Another example is you're marketing yourself as an energy healer for high-level executives. Okay, now there's another mismatch, right? Maybe you have one clear niche. That's what you're doing. Energy healer for high-level executives. Now, I'm not going to say that there's no high-level executives who would gravitate towards energy healing, but typically a type A high-level exec type person is not open to that, shall we say, or it doesn't fit into their self-perception. So that is going to be a really hard sell. So those are examples of niche confusion. There's other ones that are more amorphous, and we can talk about some of those examples as we go through here, but I just wanted to give you those just to give you a sense of what I'm talking about. Okay, so the important thing to note is that no matter how hard your work, your marketing isn't going to matter at all if you aren't positioning yourself correctly and if you don't have an audience. Okay, so the niche selection is very important. I will tell you that honestly, we don't have that many people who have an issue with niche selection. There's, I can probably count them on two hands over the years, the number of people who were totally off on niche selection. More of the problem comes in with expressing it and being clear and marketing it well. All right, but all that work that you're going to do, there are some people who are working really hard, and it's because they're barking up the wrong tree. So we're going to go ahead and dive into that. So my hope is that today you'll get more clear about these three things. One, how to position your practice correctly. Two, how and why to choose your niche or your specialties wisely. And then the third one is how to market what I call a self-crafted niche, or we could call it a micro niche. And first, how to determine if there is even a market for it and whether you should even be entering that. Okay, so these are the three things that we're going to talk about. Now, the three most common niche problems are here. Okay, the first one is I treat everything. Okay, I treat everything. Now, if you are a solo practitioner, this is probably a very self-abusive thing to do because it's a lot of work to do this well. Okay, it's a lot of work to do this well. And I'm not talking about the treating part, because we'll talk about, whole people walk in your door. So you're going to probably end up treating everything, even if you narrow your marketing. But to try to market everything well, boy, that's going to run you ragged. So I wouldn't recommend it. We're also going to talk about the variation here of group practices. Group practices, in fact, do treat everything, and they do it pretty well, and they might have the bandwidth, the manpower, if you will, to actually do all the marketing, but they still need to go about it in a very systematic way to get it done well. So we're going to talk about that problem. The second problem is I'm a specialist in using EFT, brain spotting, somatic experiencing, etc., whatever, Jungian, dream work, whatever you want it to be. And many folks are drawn to modalities. They eat, live, and breathe, love, are passionate about modalities, certain modalities like this, certain systems like this, and they view the world through that lens, and they cannot seem to step away and get it that the layperson does not view the world this way. They view the world as issue-based. I'm depressed. I'm anxious. My marriage is falling apart. My children are whatever, acting out, angry, isolated, have social issues, whatever, okay? So they really don't give a hoot, honestly, about SE or brain spotting or EFT or whatever it is. They don't. They want you to talk to them about their issue. So we're going to talk about that, how to resolve that issue, that problem. And finally, the third most common problem that we see are these self-created or micro niches that either aren't clear or they're not big enough. Okay, not big enough for the local area or not marketed well enough on a national scale. So I'm going to talk about those three issues. Now, these are the most common that we see. That does not mean that there's not another issue that you have that doesn't fit into one of these buckets. So if you have another issue, please go ahead and ask about it in the chat area. And at the end, I'm going to go into a Q&A round, and I would be happy to talk with you about your particular niche issue, if you will. I would ask that when we go into that Q&A at the end, that you try to keep your questions formulated here into this area. Let's keep on topic. Let's not start talking about hey, how do I make my Google Places listing rank? Okay, that's totally not related to what we're talking about today, and I want to make sure that anyone who has questions regarding this whole niche definition thing can get their questions answered today. Okay, so what we're going to do is tackle each problem one by one, and my hope is that in the process of doing so, you're really going to get a much, much clearer picture about how to look at this and how to solve whatever problem you might be having. So the first problem is I treat everything. Okay, now this is big. I see this quite a bit. Had a client recently saying, hey, I've been practicing for 30 years and the methods I use really do treat everything. I have worked with everything under the sun, and that's what I want on my website. Okay. Now, the other thing is I love working with a wide variety of issues. That's what people say. They don't want to be pigeonholed into only working with certain things. They like the variety. Okay, so that's valid. I don't want to just treat depression and anxiety. These are really common things that I see, and they are, I would say, kind of the basis of problems and niche problems. Okay, so let's talk about this. So the fear that people usually have when they're saying these things is, man, if I don't list all of these issues on my website, if I don't in fact open it up to the world, then I'm going to lose some potential clients. Okay, so that's a fear of loss type driver. You might actually lose some clients. Okay, you might, but and I realize that logical arguments may not hold true here, but I'm hoping I can illustrate the approach to you later so that it'll look more attractive. But here's the thing: if if you have 1,000,000 doors to your restaurant and people don't know which one to enter, they're going to be confused out there and not come in. Okay, you're not going to be able to have any structural integrity to your restaurant with 1,000,000 doors on your property, okay, on your building. So what you want to do is you want to have a couple of clearly marked doors entrance, okay, and you're going to attract those people who can come in through that entrance. And the interesting thing about people is that they're pretty multifaceted, you know. People have all the issues, right? Anyone who walks in, let's say that they come in because they are depressed. Well, guess what? In time, if you see them long enough, they're going to have relationship issues that they're going to talk about. They're going to have self-esteem issues. They're going to have some anxiety, you know, on and on, right? They're going to have children with issues. They're going to have a spouse with issues. So you really, by holding up a couple of different well-marked doors, you are not going to limit yourself in terms of the type of work that you do, because people are multifaceted. So you're gonna work with those things anyway. Now, the next thing to consider is, if you are a solo practitioner, you really want to decide upon 3 to 5 doorways for clients to enter, so that are clearly marked, so that they know, hey, you are the one for me. And you can determine which ones that you're going to hold up there, the niches that you're going to choose in a couple of different ways. And there's more variety than just this. But you can look at the demand for these issues, okay, versus the competition. So if everybody in your city is treating depression and anxiety, choose something else that you enjoy that is still in high demand. Okay, go ahead and check that out. Check out the competition, see what's happening. Determine what you like most. Okay, and those are just 2 ways that you know, demand or your affinity for something. Those are 2 ways to do it. Now, you may have questions about how you determine demand. There's some very simple keyword research that you can do in general to understand, you know, that typically, you know, the top 3 are relationships, depression, and anxiety. But, you know, then there's several others that are right in there. You may just decide, hey, I really like this, or I really like these 3, and that's what I'm going to do, and there's enough volume, or there's enough volume for at least 2 of those, and the third one, if I get, you know, a couple of clients, that's great by me. I don't need to get, you know, I don't need to be seeing, you know, 10 a week with that certain specialty. So that's what you want to do. You're going to be exhausted if you try to do more than that. Okay, now I also want you to remember what I call the 1-second rule. So the 1-second rule is that, and this gets a little bit into the marketing, but it'll help you envision your niche solution as well. The 1-second rule is that a potential client can immediately see what you do. Okay, they can immediately see what you do. They come to your website, they come to your homepage, they can immediately see what you do, they know where to go to find out more. Now, here's the 1-second rule not, okay? And this is a randomly chosen, I honestly, I said psychologytoday.com, Dallas, I chose the 4th listing. Very, very common problem. Look at this site. The navigation is on the left, and we see home, our practice, our staff, service and fees, contact us. EMDR, we see that, which is a modality, okay? But for the average layperson who's, let's say, depressed or anxious or having marital struggles, do they know immediately where to go? No, certainly not within 1 second, okay? They have no idea where to go. So this is not how to implement the 1-second rule, and this is not a very well, even if they're niched and they have specialties, they're not communicating them well, all right? So let's talk about, let me show you some examples of where it is working. So this is a navigation bar for one of our client sites, and you can see those issues right there in the top, okay? There's 5 different items in the nav bar, and in fact on some of them there are drop downs where you go more in detail, but pretty much if I come there I know where to go, okay, depending on what I have, what my issue is, so I know where to go. Another example is this one. This guy is an anxiety specialist, and so those are the items in his navigation bar. So, you know, somebody looking for help with eating disorders is going to go away, and that's fine. he doesn't have that door. Okay, he's the anxiety guy. And so that's totally fine. He doesn't want people, with that hanging out on his site. He wants to really speak to anxious folks. So that's a really good example of the 1 second rule. And group practices, they tend to have larger categories. You start the navigation at a higher level, and it's often by population. So this one is an example of a group practice. They're going to start with children, adults, couples, families. And if I'm a parent, I can click on children. There's a bunch of drop downs under that, or I go to a children's page, and then I can choose what is the actual issue. Is my child anxious? Is my child not wanting to go to school? Is my child angry? What's happening there? So these are good examples of how to implement that. Now, the next thing we want to look at is why is this a problem? For the sole practitioner trying to treat everything, it's really, you can continue to treat everything, but try to market everything, it's just too hard. It takes too much time to develop full, effective marketing for everything. It just does. There's a lot that has to go into this these days. You can't just throw up a static 5-page website and think that you're marketing. Not anymore. Way too competitive now. So what you need to do is you need to fully develop marketing for each specialty that you choose. And in order to keep yourself sane, you need to choose a limited number. So choose your top doorways, if you will, develop them fully. And what we suggest, and this is if you've been on webinars of mine in the past, you probably are sick of hearing about this, but a full 7-point marketing message for each specialty that really takes that visitor through their entire buying process. They totally feel heard and seen by you. They think that you must have a camera in their house or in their brain because you totally get them. Ideally, we want you to also have a free report to engage visitors and to build an email list. And we also want you to have blog posts about each specialty. Okay, that is full engagement there. And if you do that, you are going to be like the obvious choice in your city for that specialty. Okay, now, in New York, there's probably quite a few that are good choices, and that's okay. But in medium-sized cities, man, if you do this, you're probably going to just rock it for those specialties. So this is really what we recommend. Now, I'm going to give you an example of someone who started out with, I treat everything. I want to do everything. I've been in practice for 30 years, and I want to do everything. So what this is this is what we call a mind map. And I don't expect you to understand everything here, but let me just walk you through it really quickly, because this is how we help clients figure out where they're going and getting clarity as to what they're doing. So there are standard pages on a website. They're typically like home, contact, about, okay? Typically a blog is on there as well. And then there are specialty areas. Now, if you have a simple site, you may just have, instead of having, for instance, individual counseling and couples therapy, you may just have, anxiety, depression, and couples counseling, something like that. And that's it. And you won't have these higher level breakouts with all these things underneath them. But this therapist, is very, very experienced and wants to do all these things. And so what we did is we said, okay, let's flag as important the things in yellow, okay? Because we're going to start the site with all of those. And again, a blog should be on here and is in fact being developed for her site. But she's going to start out under individual counseling with 3 areas. That's anger management, anxiety treatment, and PTSD. Okay? That's it. And all these other ones, they can be developed over time if she in fact has time. But we're going to start out with those 3 under individual counseling. Then under couples therapy, she's going to go for basically, your basic marriage counseling type page, and then a family counseling page. Over time, when she has more time and more energy and her site is already up and working and bringing her clients, then she can break it out even further and get into, talking about communication issues specifically, or divorce counseling specifically, or infertility, etc. So this is just kind of the work that we did to help her prioritize where to start and how to get it up and going, and how to get the architecture set so that she can drop in whatever she wants to drop in and still have a site that is very clear and easy to navigate. All right, so that's that. Now, the next problem is we treat everything, and this is a group practice problem, and it's not so much that they do treat everything, because they do, but the problem is that they can't do it all at once, okay? Just like the sole practitioner, the group practice cannot do it all at once. It takes a lot of time to develop content. So the solution, again, is to prioritize the order of specialties, and I'm going to show you that here in a second. For group practices, since they have more people, they can determine what to go for first by looking at the demand for the issues, maybe looking at what is most profitable for their group practice. For instance, we've done this with folks who have psychiatrists on board, and often the psychiatrists bring in more money. And so in a group practice, they want to make sure that in the first phase, they definitely include psychiatry evaluations, med management type stuff, because that's high ticket stuff. The other thing that some group practices look at is, okay, what are the skills I have in-house? Who treats what, and who's eager to help with marketing, who's eager to help with writing some marketing messages. So that if you have a group practice, that may be one of the big determinants as to what you're going to put in the phase 1 of your rollout of your site. Now, over time, a group practice is definitely going to be able to peel out deeper specialties. Okay, so for instance, they may start with just a couples counseling page, but over time they can expand that to infidelity, communication, etc. In-law problems, whatever. They're going to have the folks to help do that. Sole practitioner may or may not. You may just decide, wow, this is good enough, I'm tired. The phone's ringing enough, I'm going to stop. Okay, or you may decide, hey, I love this area, I'm really going to highlight that and peel that out as well. Now, I don't expect you to be able to read this, so just look at it from a high-level view and just look at the colors, perhaps. So the yellow, again, is what we're going to do first, and so at the very top up here we have home, contact, about us, blog, and then these areas are more specialty grouping areas. And of course, it's a group practice, so there's a lot, okay? So this one is children, down here it's teens, over here it's adults, and up here it's couples. And of course, again, this would be a lot of work and pretty much impossible for a sole practitioner to do, but for a group practice, it is possible if done in a orderly, well planned out fashion. Now, the other thing I want you to notice is that the yellow is what's going to go first, so all these items are going to be on the site, and then down in here, in each one of these areas, there are priorities that are going to be implemented. So this is just going to be couples counseling to start with. Under adults, it's going to be divorce recovery and then evaluations and psychiatry. Again, this is one where they have a psychiatrist on staff. That's a high profit area, so they want to include that. Again, for teens, they're including evaluations and psychiatry, and again, for children, they're doing the same thing. And that's going to be the first phase. Now, the blue items on here, which you can't read at all, I realize, are, and I'm going to show you a chart here in a second that will elaborate a little bit more, but these are the order. So after this first set of yellow high priority items, the next phase is going to be actually digging into what is the order that we're going to do next. So we have 2s and 3s. So in phase 2, this group practice is going to attack ADHD or ADD-ADHD, adjustment issues, anxiety. You're going to skip down here and do some behavior problems, and this is all in the children's area, and depression. And then they're leaving some other things for the third phase, OCD, autism, attachment issues, yeah, those 3. Okay, so this is just an idea of how you could roll it out if you have a group practice, how you can get all of this done over time in an order that is going to bring you business as fast as possible and still allow you to fully express everything that you do and not drive yourself crazy. All right, now there is an exception to this I treat everything problem. If you are in a very small town with no competition, you can say I treat everything. Okay? If you're the only game in town, you can have a homepage that says, hey, if you're struggling with depression, anxiety, ADHD, marital problems, blah, 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 whatever, right? You could list it all, and you're the only game in town, so you're going to get folks, okay? They don't have much choice. But if you are anywhere where there's competition, the more specificity and the fuller expression of a marketing message for each specialty is really going to help you. All right, so this is an exception. It's not something we usually see. Now, I'm going to move to the second problem. And the second problem is a modality focus. I talked a little bit about this. This is the problem where someone says, I'm a specialist in Jungian depth psychology or emotionally focused therapy. The EFT folks are really big into kind of a over-identification with their specialty, I've noticed. Brain spotting, that's one of the cool new things. So people focus on this, therapists focus on this, thinking that, man, I'm going to be really sought out because this is what I do. It's what they love, but they can't see far enough to realize that the lay person has no idea what these things are. Now, the problem isn't that no one searches on these modalities. In fact, EMDR is a great example, right? Some people search on EMDR because they've heard about it enough and they've heard it's a good trauma treatment, and so there are some searches, okay? But comparatively, very few do. If you look at issue searches versus modality searches, there's no comparison whatsoever. So here's an example. Let's look at this. Marriage counseling. It gets almost 50,000 searches per month. Couples counseling, 8,100 per month. Therapy for depression, 1,600. You can see a big drop off there, right? And notice that I'm not just entering depression. Depression could be the Great Depression. It could be research on depression. We really want to look for people who are looking for help with their issue and the kind of help you provide. Now, cognitive behavioral therapist, that's modality focused, right? Look how far that jumps down. CBT is huge. I mean, it's one of the largest modalities out there. Look at that, 480. Not even, it's like 1/4 of the lowest issue number that we have up there. And then emotionally focused therapy therapists, 30, right? Emotionally focused therapy in and of itself is largely research-based. It's a lot of students or other practitioners looking for training on it or whatever. But, how many people are really looking for an EFT therapist? Not very many. Okay, so this is why it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have it somewhere on your site. Doesn't mean you shouldn't rank. But if you're holding that out as, hey man, I'm the EFT therapist in town, come to me, you're gonna be waiting for the phone to ring, because people aren't thinking that way. They're thinking in terms of, ooh, I need a marriage counselor, I need a couples counselor, I need some therapy for my depression or depression counseling or something like that. Okay, so that'll just show you why you don't want to do that modality focus. Now, again, as I just said, the solution is to focus on searched upon issues, and the actual terminology that you use does matter. Keyword research helps with this. For instance, anxiety counseling and anxiety therapy are much lower than anxiety treatment. You could argue perhaps that treatment might include some meds. That's okay. There's a percentage there that is going to include meds, but at least it's somebody looking for help with their issue. They're not just doing research on what is anxiety. Okay, so that's that. All right, so here's an example of someone. Now, believe it or not, this guy started out with a website that wasn't doing very well, but it had like home, and then it had CJ Young or CG Young in the navigation, and maybe, I don't know, dream work. It was totally modality focused. I forget what all he had. And so what we did was we said, well, who do you work with? Who do you really work with? Oh, with couples and with individuals, suffering from anxiety and depression and grief, and looking for some spiritual help, and they have some LGBTQ issues that they want to work through. And it's like, okay, now we're getting somewhere, right? And so we're redoing his site, and we're focusing on those things. Now, over here, you can see that there's a plus there. So that can expand, and it can talk about, okay, this therapist, here's all about this therapist, and here's what he's really good at. Here's what he loves. He loves doing Jungian dream work or whatever, okay? You can put that there. You know, I would caution you to be too modality focused because it'll totally freak out some people. They will be going, oh man, what? I really just want to do, like, I want to come in here and work through this grief. I don't really know if I want to hear all about this DreamWorks stuff or this young guy, whoever that is, right? So you want to be careful about not putting that too much in the face of folks, but you also don't have to totally hide it, okay? You can go ahead and say, hey, this is what I love. This stuff that I use is really effective. It's pretty fun. So go ahead and do that. Notice again that the top 4 pages here are the standard, you know, home, blog, about, contact, and then you know, with this guy, his site is going to be much, much more effective because we're just focusing on a handful of things. And he's going to be able to reach these folks who are really, you know, grieving or depressed or having LGBTQ issues, anxiety, spiritual, whatever. All right, so that's just an example of moving from modality. Now, the final thing that I'm going to talk about here, the final problem, is again these self-crafted niches or micro niches or whatever. And I actually started out here myself when my only therapy practice out of school was Center for Healthy Divorce. You can laugh, but you know, I had been through a terrible divorce and I knew there was a better way to do it, and I felt that there were enough people somewhere that had the same mindset as me, or that were looking at a divorce and didn't want to go through hell with it and abuse each other. And so I hoped that that would be good enough. Now, in my case, I ended up having to do a little more actual outreach and marketing to make it work, and it worked really, really well. But I started doing collaborative law stuff with attorneys, which I then decided I didn't want to continue because attorneys are crazy people. But bottom line, you may have to do some more outreach. If you have a very micro-defined niche, you may have to do some outreach. If it has to do with, you know, maybe even, you know, you look at folks who do sex therapy. Sometimes they get referrals from gynecologists or urologists or whatever. So you may have to do some outreach with other professionals within your market to go for it. Really make it work. A lot of times people who just focus on kids do outreach within the schools, and they get a lot of referrals from the schools, and that's great. That's great. So what we want to do is we want to really look at this. Now, this is an actual person who came to me not long ago. She basically said, I want to talk to you about why marketing my coaching services through social media brings accolades but not clients. Okay, this is something you really want to watch. For those of you who always say, oh, people love my website. I get so many compliments on my website, but your phone isn't ringing. Be careful of who is singing your praises. They really usually don't know a whole lot. They think, wow, if I were going to create a website, yours looks pretty neat. It looks pretty, or whatever, and they don't really know that it's not working at all from a marketing standpoint. So be careful of your clients telling you your site's beautiful, or your mother or whoever, because, you know, sometimes they just don't know enough to know that it's not going to work no matter how beautiful it is. Now, she also said, my therapy site is much admired and does convert clients but brings insufficient new business. Okay. Now, this person's issue, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, her issue was that she pretty much, she chose a micro niche. She pretty much neglected her regular therapy site, and therefore she didn't add content to it. She didn't tend her garden there, and it basically just fell off totally. It wasn't bringing her any new business. And she went into this micro niche, which was exciting, and it was all about something that she had recently gone through herself. But it was so micro niche that in order to make it work, she really had to go national, and she wasn't marketing well nationally yet. And honestly, she was pretty tired because she worked so hard on both of these things. It's pretty hard to balance two, okay? So she was really tired. She kind of knew what she needed to do, but she didn't have any more energy. She'd spent it all. So we're going to talk about what you need to do if you have a self-crafted or micro niche. So some examples of them are this. You know, I'm going to have a website about empowering women who have survived the loss of a child. Okay? Wow. I mean, that's pretty intense work, right? That's pretty intense work. Now, are there enough people in your town to make that practice work? If that is your sole passion, helping those women, which is quite admirable, are you going to be able to eat? Okay, that's the question. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that if you have something that narrow, it still could be an awesome thing, but you're probably going to have to go national with it. Okay. Another example, emotional healing after a life-threatening illness. Okay, this again it's great, it's admirable, I mean, everyone knows that, gosh, if you go through cancer or something like that, most likely you're going to have a lot of emotional scarring after getting through that, right? That's pretty scary stuff. But how do you market it? How do you position it? And are there enough people locally, or do you need to go national? There's a lot of folks anymore that seem like they're veering towards the emotional aspects of living with some kind of chronic pain or chronic illness. So, living with fibromyalgia, that's another one. Might need to go national with that. Partners of narcissists, okay, big problem. If you know anyone who's in that situation, huge problem. But are there enough in your town who are going to do that? Or do you need to go national? So these are just some examples of going micro and then needing to, often here it is, you need to go national. You need to make sure you can find a large enough audience. And if you must go nationwide, then there's some things you got to think about. Can you coach outside of your state? If you're licensed as a therapist, can you also coach? And can you do so across state lines? Find out. Make sure it's not going to hurt your license. Also, make sure that there are communities that exist out there, that people are gathering around this issue. So, the emotional life of someone struggling with fibromyalgia. Are there Yahoo groups about that? Are there Google groups? Are there LinkedIn groups? Most likely there are. Facebook. I should have put Facebook on there too. Are people gathering around that watering hole? And if so, become part of them. Okay, get in there, be part of that, talk with them, and see if there is really a market there or not. That's what you need to do. All right, now, if you're going to do this, let's say you decide that there is a market. There, in fact, is a market. There's a lot of people out there talking about this stuff, supporting each other, talking about the challenges, whatever, and they need help from somebody qualified to actually help them with the emotional aspects of it. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to build a list, okay? You got to build a list. That's the only way to do it. And you got to market smart. That's all there is to it. You're most likely going to have to offer coaching groups in addition to your one-on-one work. Okay, most likely just one-on-one phone therapy or coaching is not going to be enough. Offering groups is going to enable you to make more money and serve more people and touch more people for the same amount of effort. So, a teleseminar, a telephone group, that's going to be really important to do, or a webinar type group. You'll most likely need to do teleseminars and webinars to get engagement. Okay, that's what I do, right? My audience is national. If I just tried to market to the therapists in Denver and Boulder, I probably wouldn't have enough clients. Okay, even though there's tons of them. But it's much better that I go national. And in order to go national, you need to do teleseminars and webinars. It can be really fulfilling to go national, and I'm going to talk about some therapy niches where people are doing that. I'm going to show you some. So again, make sure that there are groups of people, gathering around, discussing these issues, seeking help, seeking support from one another. Make sure there's searches for it. Are people, actually searching for emotional support around fibromyalgia, or help for women who have lost their children, or whatever, that kind of thing. Make sure that you can come up with some kind of a solution or offering where you can do phone sessions or offer a program, put together a program to help people. And here's an example. One example is Shopaholic No More. Now, this is very, very niched, right? Compulsive buyers, shopaholics, right? Not a lot of people work with that audience. But April Benson is a longtime client of mine, and she has, her list is pretty amazing. She has a huge list, and she offers, as you can see at the top there, a telecoaching group. She's been offering that for years. She also sees people locally in New York. They come to her office, but she can't see enough people, even in New York probably, with this issue. She has to go national. In fact, she's international. So this is an example of the type of thing you're going to need to do if you're very niched and you need to market to this list. You need to hold webinars, hold teleseminars, hold groups over the phone, that kind of thing. That's what you're going to need to do to make it work. Okay, so let's talk about next steps. Where do you go from here? If you are concerned about the niche you have right now, do some keyword research to see if there's demand. And in order to do that, you just go to, just Google keyword tool. And you'll get a link to go to the AdWords. You probably have AdWords site. You probably have to set up an account if you don't already have one. But you can do some keyword research to see if, in fact, people are looking for help in the niche that you want to be in. Reorganize your website. Okay, if you already have good niches and you aren't following the 1 second rule, do it. Make that work for you. Okay. There's no reason it shouldn't work if they are high volume enough, high demand. And develop solid marketing. Okay, that includes marketing messages, free reports, blog posts. Really do the whole shebang and just choose those limited numbers so that you can, in fact, do the whole shebang. Now, there are some resources to help you on our site. If you go to counselingwise.com/3-videos, there are 3 videos of webinars I did where I walk you through, okay, how to do a marketing message, how to do blog posts, how to do free reports, and nurture your list. So those 3 videos will pretty much tell you everything you need to know in terms of marketing fully. If you want help with that, we have a program called the Smart Therapy Websites Program. You can find that by going to counselingwise.com/smart, and we can basically do the whole thing for you. Really easy way to go. If you are still confused regarding your niche, as you can see, we've done work with some of these folks to help them get clarity and organization. You may need some strategy work too. If you think this might apply to you, then feel free to talk to me. You may need a client strategy meeting with us. We just put up a page on our site about this. We've been doing them for quite some time, but not really telling anyone about it. So you can go to counselingwise.com/client-strategy-meetings, and you can learn about that. Details, it is $100 an hour for that work, and it usually takes, I don't know, between 2 and 4 hours, something like that, to come up with a strategy, unless it's a no-brainer, really quick slam dunk thing. But if we need to work with you on who are you really, what do you really want to do, what's your passion, how can we bridge what you want to do to demand in the marketplace, that takes work. Okay, that's consulting work, high-level consulting work. It takes time, and for the folks who need it, it is like extremely, it's going to make or break what they're doing. So this is a good thing to do. You can, in addition to going to that page, you can always just go to our home page, and Let's Talk thing will pop up, and you can set a time to discuss with me. Okay? So it's time for questions. I'm going to open it up for questions. Feel free to enter them into the chat box. I'm going to make the chat box visible, or more visible now, and I'm going to just go through and answer questions. Before I do that, I want to let you know that next week, what we're going to be talking about next Wednesday, same bat channel, is your niche solid, but your marketing's still not working? Okay, so if your niche is really solid and the niche isn't your issue, let's talk about your marketing. So we're going to show you how to assess your marketing. We've been doing that for quite a while. We have a very in-depth process. We're going to show you the high points of that, how you can get started on that yourself, and also show you how to get our assistance if you need help there. Okay, so I'm going to pop over here to the chat box, I hope, and see what is up here, see who has questions. So somebody is saying, I get a lot of impressions on my website and few clicks. Also, the new WordPress dashboard is full of bugs. That's interesting. We aren't having a problem with the WordPress dashboard being full of bugs, so I wonder if there's some implementation hiccup there for you, Rebecca. And impressions, I'm wondering what you mean by that. Are you running AdWords? Because that's how you get impressions, and few clicks. So it may be that you have a niche issue, right? If there's not enough demand, then that is one of the problems there. Kathy says, I work in a highly competitive area. How do I assess what issues are both in demand and profitable? Okay, good. Let's talk about that a minute, because that's a really good question. So keyword research is going to help you assess demand. Like I said, go to Google, type in Google keyword tool. That'll take you to a place where you can find out more about it. And I'm going to actually see if I can make this there. Hopefully you guys can type in public chats now. Hopefully you can find out what's in demand there, but what's profitable, okay? Think in terms of urgency, honestly, urgency, okay? If there's a high level of urgency, if a mom finds out her teen has an eating disorder, is she going to dilly-dally around and get her in? No, she's not. She's going to do something. If a kid is suicidal or an adult is suicidal, is there urgency around that? Definitely, okay? If infidelity is one of your interests, wow, big urgency there, right? Something's going to happen soon. So those are things that are that people take action on. Okay, and those are things that are going to be highly profitable because people really need help immediately. So that's just a guideline. Think in terms of that. All right. Somebody is saying, I enjoy working with men who are breaking up or recovering from a breakup. That's who I want to work with first, and then women from ages 30 to 45 with the same issue. How do I capture this audience? Well, that's pretty straightforward, right? I mean, you can work on being the the relationship wreckage fixer or whatever, breakuprecovery.com. You may have to go national with that, however, right? How many people are just going to be coming in for that issue in your town? You may have to go national, and that's okay. I mean, those are great groups. There's what is that other group? I forget the name of them, but there's a group that the Bruce Fisher model, I forget the name of the whole program, but they have, I mean, that's all about recovering from a breakup. Huge national program. So there's definitely demand nationally for that, and probably even locally if you could really market well. But that one's pretty straightforward. I'm going to go down here and see if there's any other questions. I'm not sure if I'm navigating this correctly. I think I am. Somebody asked, Kathy asked, what are free reports? Very good question. Okay. A free report would be when you hold up something on your site. Let's say you have a specialty page, and the specialty page is, let's just say the specialty page is about depression. You can put a free report on that page which says, are you really clinically depressed, or is this just normal ups and downs? Okay, now what's going to happen with that, Kathy, is that someone who is depressed, most likely they've been in and out of denial for years about their depression. They really want to think that it's not a big deal, but they're doubting that because it keeps persisting. They're going to download that darn report, I'll tell you. They're going to give you their name and email, and they're going to download it. Now you have a list that you're building of people who are interested in struggling with depression. And you can show up in their inbox once a month with some new article on recent research about depression treatment, or tips on how to get motivated, get to work every day if you're depressed, or whatever. How to be in relationship when you're struggling with depression. That's a huge problem, right? So that's what free reports are. And in fact, if you look at our site, I believe you can just do a search on our site for free reports, or I think counselingwise.com/free-reports is a page that tells you all about how to make those. So let's see, just trying to see what else we have going on in here. Any other questions? I think, okay. Carol says, I'm a grief counselor specialist, and many people call but do not follow through with coming in. I do groups and individual therapies. Okay, that's great. Again, that is a less urgent type situation. It is a low energy population, right? Usually they're depressed, they're sad. I think, Carol, one thing that could really help you there's going to be a lot of denial for a long time about grief, right? The whole cycle. And what's wrong with me? Why can't I just get over this? I should be able to just get over this. I don't really need help. I'm a wimp. All this stuff that people do to themselves if they're really suffering from complicated grief. And so what you want to do is you definitely want to have a free report on your site. You definitely do, so that they can identify that they in fact do really have a problem. You really want to build an email list, and you really want to show up on a regular basis in their inbox. This stuff holds on forever. Their little trip down the river of denial is big and long, and if you continue to show up, you are going to be top of mind as the person to go to when they are finally ready, sick and tired of it, ready to do something about it. So if you don't have a free report yet, Carol, then get one of those on your site. That will help you a lot. And if you want to talk more about it, reach out and let me know. Somebody else says, I have a niche working with young women, 20 to 35, who have generalized anxiety. Often parents pay for treatment. So should I target parents? Yes, you should. Very good. If it's that age group, hopefully around 35 they're paying for their own therapy. But that's a whole other discussion we could have. But anyway, yeah, you should definitely have that. And so what I would probably have is I would have navigation items on my site for anxiety, but I would also have something that says, do you have a loved one who is suffering from anxiety? And talk to, or family members of folks who are anxious, something like that, a family members page, and then talk to them and really write a really, really strong marketing message for them, right? I mean, get into what it is, dig deep. Okay, we have a dig deep exercise that we do when we do marketing message writing, but dig deep into that, right? What is life like for that person? A parent of, I have one myself, I have an anxious kid, right? And so it's excruciating to watch her, how much pain she's in, how much she goes through. Simple little things that I think should be simple. They were for my older daughter, but it's really hard to watch. And what can I do to help her? And what can I do to encourage her to have experiences so that she can actually realize she can live through them and all that good stuff, right? So dig deep into that. If someone mirrors that back to me as a parent, I'm going to go, oh my gosh, you totally get it. Oh, I'm coming in to figure out what I can do, and I'm hopefully getting my kid to come in. Okay, if you get to that level of detail where that person can see themselves on the page on your site, then you're gonna do really well. All right. So I believe that's about it. I don't see any other questions coming in. We have 3 minutes left. If you have one last urgent question, please type it in, and I'll answer it. And I'll wait here for a minute to see if one pops up. If not, we're going to call it a day. And thank you very much for coming. Again, if you need to contact me to talk about your particular situation, or if you think that you might need a client strategy session with us, feel free to reach out through the website, counselinwise.com, and I'll help you with that. And tune in next week, because there we're going to talk about, okay, your niche is solid, then let's really talk about whether your marketing is solid or not. And we'll go through some things that you can do yourself to see if you're solid with more of an objective view, and if not, how you can get some help from us. Okay, over and out. Becky DeGrossa, Counseling Wise. Thanks a lot for coming. Take care. Bye-bye.